Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today I'm doing a Top 5 Wednesday topic because it sounded like a really interesting topic for this week. Top 5 Wednesday was originally created by Ginger Reads Laney and it is currently run by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, and I will link the Goodreads group down below. This week's topic is authors you want to read more from, and I initially thought this would be pretty easy to make until I started making a list. And guys, I had like 25 authors on a list, which was already narrowed down to just authors that I had read something by, but they still had a backlist for me to get into because I didn't want to make this be a list of authors where I've read all of their books and I'm just waiting for future releases. I wanted to talk about authors that I know that they have backlists and I want to get into those. So this list of 5 authors has turned out to be kind of a random selection and they are not ranked in any particular way. The really obvious choice that I have left off of this list is clearly Ursula K. Le Guin, and I've left her off purely because she's so obvious. I love Le Guin, I've talked about her frequently here. I have read over 20 things by her. I've also read quite a bit of her short fiction, but I haven't read all of it. I still have 3 or 4 novels that I own that I haven't read before, and a lot of her short fiction left to read, but she's not technically on this list. The first one is C.J. Cherryh. In particular, I would like to get back to the Foreigner series and read the 7 or 8 other books that have been written since I read the first 9. The reason I've been putting this off and why I haven't been reading much Cherryh in the past couple of years is simply because I've been saying that I want to reread the first 9 Foreigner books before I pick up the series and read the other ones. But I just haven't made time for that, and that may be unrealistic at this point. Cherryh has also written other science fiction that I haven't read, and she's also written a lot of fantasy. I think a lot of that from like the 70s and 80s, which I have never read. So I have a lot of choices there, and I still need to finish the Fated Sun trilogy. I've read the first book, Kesrith, twice, and I intended to keep going when I reread it, and I never have. It's still sitting up there waiting for me to pick it up. Number 2 is China Mieville, which is an interesting choice for this list considering I have had a kind of rocky relationship with his books. The first thing I ever read by Mieville was Perdido Street Station, and it is one of the worst reading experiences of my life. That book broke me of the habit of finishing every book that I started. Since then, I have read The City and the City and Embassy Town by Mieville, and I loved them both so much. Which means I'm now pretty excited about getting on to other of his works. This year I will probably read Unlondon and Iron Council. Unlondon I think is his take on young adult fantasy, and Iron Council is set in the same world as Perdido Street Station. It's a boss log book, which means I may not like it. But also because his books are so different from each other, I may love it. Number 3 is EMM Banks. Specifically, I want to read more of his culture novels. These books are very highly lauded. They are excellent science fiction, and so far I have read 3 of them. I loved Use of Weapons and The Player of Games, and Surface Detail was good, but like horrifically graphic. That book made me so queasy. But I want to continue reading. The odd thing is that it takes me a really long time in between books. It's been over a year and a half, I think, since I read Use of Weapons, and I still haven't picked up Consider Phlebas, which is the next book in the reading order I'm following, because they're really, really good. But they're also heavy, and I am not often in the mood to digest one of those books fully, but eventually it will happen. Number 4 is Andrea Wolfe, who is the only nonfiction author on this list. I have read 2 of her books and really enjoyed them. I read Chasing Venus, which was about the scientific expeditions put together to view the transit of Venus across the surface of the sun in the early 1700s, I believe. I've also read her biography of Alexander von Humboldt called The Invention of Nature, which was fantastic. It's the only biography I've ever read, and now I want to read more. So she doesn't have a huge backlist. I think she only has 3 other books, and the 2 in particular that I really want to read are The Founding Gardeners and The Brother Gardeners, which I don't know much about, except they probably have to do with gardening and agriculture in the 1700s and 1800s here in the US. And lastly, number 5 is Joanna Russ. I am shocked and a little disappointed in myself that I have to date only read one thing by Russ, and that was The Female Man. It was great. It made me think very hard. Now, the reason I really want to read Joanna Russ is merely to be familiar with her work that is referenced so much. I'm involved in a lot of conversations about feminist science fiction, and I enjoy reading classic female authors in the field, and that means that Russ's name comes up all the time. Her works, especially How to Suppress Women's Writing, are invoked all the time, and I just want to be more familiar with them. The next thing I will probably read by her is We Who Are About To, which is a shorter, like, novella-length science fiction story, and then I will eventually get my hands on a copy of How to Suppress Women's Writing, and then I expect to be really depressed because that kind of thing still happens today. Those are 5 of the authors that I want to read more from. This needs to happen soon, but I have a really long list of books that I want to read. Eventually, it'll happen. So that's everything from me today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.